We're bad bitches, but we don't care what you think about us.
These two are best friends. They're so close they don't mind fondling each other. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have two rivals. But it wasn't always this way. Friends turned foes. You know how the story goes. On the surface, most people think Squid Game is a series all about capitalism. But real ones know it's all about estranged friendships, or rather the lack of friendships. And also it's a show about a guy who's a deadbeat father, as in the main character is completely atrocious. Imagine having the chance to go and see your own offspring, but instead you decide to save a bunch of strangers who don't even know you. But that's a story for another time. Let me explain.
The Big Dipper.
The protagonist of Squid Game had a friend from back in the day who was really close to him. But unfortunately, somewhere along the line, their paths diverged and communication practically became non-existent. I'm sure everyone watching this has one or two of those stories. What makes the final game somewhat sad is knowing that these two used to play that same game as children. Of course, back then there was no prize pool to be won. It was just two Asian kids goofing around in the rain. The only reward back then was the only reward any kid wants: bragging rights. But here things are now different. Childhood innocence is pretty much non-existent. Now the tables have turned. It's every man for himself. One will be crowned an apex predator while the other will be cowering in fear. The only way one can win is by ending the other's life. No bragging rights, no glory, and nothing to boast about. But there is a cash prize of $4.6 million. The real question is, are you willing to kill your friend all for dead presidents? Squid Game is interesting in the sense that if you pay attention, you realize that it's a story about lost innocence. It's a story that ultimately makes you question the meaning of friendship. That kinda sounds corny, but at its core, what else is this series about? Yeah, capitalism, blah blah blah, the rich control the poor, yada yada. We've all heard that take before. But broken bonds is something I don't see a lot of people take note of. Personally, I think Squid Game is a show that reminds you that human nature will always reign supreme. People are selfish. The main character wants to be a hero so badly he's willing to pull a Clark Kent and save random people, but he can't even be the superhero his daughter needs. Kinda ironic. Everyone in this show is connected but completely estranged at the exact same time. Some of the strongest bonds you'd expect seem to be hanging on a thread. The main character and his wife don't get along, his mom tries to believe in him, but their relationship is somewhat iffy to say the least. This relationship ends permanently once he wins the games and finds out that she's not even breathing anymore. This is a recurring theme throughout the series, that friends become strangers. Well, at least that's what I inferred. There are numerous examples. During the game of marbles, our protagonist lies to the old man in order to survive. The only person who player 1 believed in and trusted betrayed him. Which is interesting to say the least, considering this man calls him his friend, but then the whole time he never told his friend that he's part of this entire dubious fiasco of setting up the games. So were they really friends in the first place? I don't know. Much like friendship itself, it's convoluted. Squid Game became popular because I think deep down we all relate. It's a show that highlights the worst traits in people. No matter how fancy your suit is or what your college GPA is, when push comes to shove, people will do the most primal things in order to survive. Whether it's fuck someone in the bathroom to make them think you care for them, or to form alliances in order to survive. People will always do what's in their best interests. The old man himself is one of the founders of the games, but he's lonely and doesn't have a single friend, hence he's playing the games. You'd think that he'd be friends with the rest of the ultra rich folks, but that isn't the case. That kinda got me wondering, if all these rich guys are on the same level so to speak, they should all be getting along, right? They're rich as fuck, probably touch kids in their basements, pee on people then pay them a fee, the typical rich shit. But why is he alone? I honestly think that's one huge metaphor for relations are complicated. Ali gets betrayed by his so-called friends. See where I'm going with this? Really makes you wonder. You can kinda take it a step further and come to the conclusion that friendships are pretty meaningless. People formed alliances and in a sense became acquainted because of this. But when it boiled down to whose life was meaningless, everyone turned on each other like the passengers on board the Titanic when they saw limited lifeboats. This kinda reminds me of something that happened to me recently. Basically, I wanted to see an old friend after some time and I was enthusiastic on seeing this person. But they hit me with a response that made me rethink everything. The response was, "I'm busy." And now before someone gives me flack in the comments, just know that I had done a lot for this person and I hadn't seen them in over a year, and that response was invalid, cause the context behind it was objectively flimsy. But I kept thinking about this conversation I had with them for like 10 days straight at 3 AM. It just made me reevaluate friends in general. Made me think everything was one-sided from the start, or maybe I came across like I care too much. And you know how people treat you when you show them that you care? You'll end up like the wife of a drunkard, abused. I think the scene where the old man challenged the protagonist to one final game pretty much encapsulates everything about society in a nutshell. During the scene, he saw someone on the side of the road who needed help. He claimed that people are selfish and nobody, and I mean absolutely nobody, is going to pitch up and lend a helping hand. But player 456, still having faith in people and not having a nihilistic approach to the world, believes otherwise. Long story short, he was correct. So with that happening, it kinda debunks the title of this video, right? Well, you're wrong. It's kinda ironic how kids' games that are supposed to be a bonding exercise have turned into an inevitable death Olympics. Tug of war is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be a way of building camaraderie. Instead, it's now a spectacle for rich fat white people who have an Asian fetish. Our main character's life is pretty mundane. Before he even becomes a member of the games, he doesn't really have people he can call his friends. He just moves around with a bunch of people whom he owes money to. He's the embodiment of a person whose dreams are dead. He just wanders around like a vagabond trying to withdraw money from ATMs and plays with his kid whenever he gets a chance. The whole time he's doing this, he still believes that his former friend has a high reputation. The last time he heard of him, he was living large. It's only later on towards the end of the season where he finds out that that didn't last. Now you might be wondering what's the point of me telling you all of this. If you read between the lines, it's fair to say that Squid Game just makes you realize that this is real life and we all can be saved through the power of friendship. It's kinda sad when you realize everything is transactional, and being a friend isn't cheap. People will always expect something in return, but at the same time you can't please everyone. That entire experience I went through taught me a valuable lesson. Well, for starters, women aren't good people. Secondly, excuses are like assholes. Everyone has one. In those moments when I slumped over my bed, I kinda felt like Ali. You can do as much good as you want, but then just like Ali, it kinda gets you nothing. Art mimics reality, and Squid Game is no exception. Nobody would be friends with someone else if it didn't benefit them. That's just the truth. Yeah, like we're friends now for the time being so we can stand a chance at winning the big bucks, but if it boils down to you or me, I'll choose myself. Squid Game just goes to show you how it's a dog-eat-dog world. If you think about it for too long, you might find yourself looking like our main character, just sitting on the beach and realizing that everything is kinda meaningless. I guess Dave was right the entire time. We're all alone in this together. I didn't want to end this video on a morbid note, so I mean, on the positive, hey, this guy's hairstyle is kinda cool, right? He got the red going, he looks like a pop star,